The alien queen promised marriage if I could calm her baby, and I was speechless. Evan Marlowe had never seen a planet like Lyranthia. From the moment his starship entered the planet's orbit, he was mesmerized by the colors below. The forests glowed faintly in shades of green and blue, and streams of liquid light ran between mountains that seemed to float above the ground. The atmosphere shimmered, not just with sunlight, but with something magical, almost alive. For a diplomat like Evan, he had seen many planets, but none like this. He felt a mixture of awe and nervousness. He adjusted his uniform and looked at the starship's console. Approaching the royal palace, the ship's AI announced in its calm voice. Evan nodded, taking a deep breath. Today, he would meet Queen Seraphina, the ruler of the Lyranthians. She was known across the galaxy for her wisdom and intelligence. Humans had always approached her people carefully, for the Lyranthians were cautious of outsiders. But now, Evan was the first human to visit the palace as a representative of Earth. The ship's landing bay opened, revealing the palace in its full glory. It floated gracefully above the glowing forests, supported by structures that looked like delicate crystalline pillars. Waterfalls of light cascaded from the palace, reflecting colors that danced across the bay. Evan could not help but stare. The architecture was beyond anything he had imagined, elegant, yet powerful. It felt alive, as if the building itself was breathing. When the doors opened, a wave of warmth and faint floral scent greeted him. Servants and guards in flowing, luminous robes moved silently across the palace floor, guiding him toward the main hall. Evan noticed that everything in the palace shimmered slightly, not from lights but from some inner energy. The air hummed softly, like a quiet song that made the skin tingle. Evan stepped into the hall. The ceiling stretched high above, disappearing into glowing clouds of color. Towers of crystal rose along the walls, and delicate patterns floated in the air like living artwork. In the center of the hall, on a raised platform, sat Queen Seraphina. She was breathtaking. Her skin was pale but luminous, with tiny light patterns that moved softly across her shoulders. Her eyes were large and bright, golden like sunlight, yet full of intelligence. She wore a gown that seemed to be made from liquid starlight, flowing and sparkling as if it were part of the palace itself. The queen's expression was calm, yet there was a trace of concern in her eyes. Evan bowed politely, keeping his hands visible to show respect. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice steady, though he felt his heart beat faster than usual. "I am Evan Marlowe, sent as an ambassador from Earth. It is an honor to meet you." Queen Seraphina nodded slowly, her gaze studying him carefully. "Evan Marlowe," she said, her voice smooth and melodic. "Welcome to Lyranthia. We have observed your species from afar. You are the first human diplomat we have invited into our palace. That is no small honor." Evan's stomach tightened with nerves. He had practiced diplomacy, studied alien customs, and learned the basic Lyranthian language. But meeting a queen of such intelligence in person was far different from any briefing he had attended. Before he could reply, a sudden high-pitched cry filled the hall. It was sharp and unexpected, and every Lyranthian servant and guard froze. Queen Seraphina's face shifted slightly. There was worry in her eyes. Evan looked around, trying to locate the source of the sound. From a small golden cradle beside the queen, a tiny figure emerged. A baby, small, delicate, and unlike any human child, was crying with all the force of a storm in miniature. Its wings, translucent and shimmering like crystals, fluttered in distress. Its eyes were large and glowing faintly, and tiny patterns of light rippled across its skin. The cry echoed softly but clearly through the palace hall, drawing everyone's attention. "Lilian," Queen Seraphina said softly, addressing the baby, "please calm yourself." The baby's cries only grew louder. The palace staff whispered urgently among themselves, but no one dared to approach. Queen Seraphina's lips pressed into a thin line, showing concern that was rare for a ruler known for composure. Evan noticed her hand hover over the baby, a subtle gesture of comfort, but she did not touch it. The queen turned to him, her golden eyes meeting his. "It seems," she said, with a hint of curiosity, "that you may be able to help. Humans have a certain presence that others sometimes cannot match. Perhaps you can calm my child." Evan blinked, completely caught off guard. He had read about alien child behavior and bonding, but this was far beyond anything he expected. He felt the weight of the moment. The queen, the palace, the eyes of her people, all watching him, waiting. And the baby's cries continued, each one more insistent than the last. He swallowed hard. I will try," he said, his voice careful and soft. He approached the cradle slowly, keeping his movements calm. Every step made him feel like the floor itself was watching. The baby stopped crying for a moment, focusing its glowing eyes on him. Evan noticed the rhythm in the baby's tiny movements, almost like a heartbeat he could feel in the air. He knelt beside the cradle, keeping his distance but maintaining eye contact. He began speaking softly, in a tone both calm and warm. He did not use the Lyranthian language yet. He was relying on instinct and his human ability to project emotion through voice and presence. "Hey there," he murmured gently. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you, I'm your friend." The baby's wings twitched slightly and its cries softened, but it did not stop. Evan realized it was responding, just not fully. He remembered stories his grandmother used to tell him about calming infants through rhythm and music. Though this was an alien child, some instincts were universal. He hummed a melody from his childhood, a soft, simple tune he had sung to younger cousins on Earth. The sound of the melody, gentle and repetitive, seemed to catch the baby's attention. Its wings quivered in fascination, and its eyes blinked slowly, focusing more clearly on Evan. Queen Seraphina watched silently, her expression unreadable but alert. The servants and guards held their breath, whispering softly to one another. Evan continued, slowly rocking the cradle in time with his humming. The baby's cry became a soft cooing sound, almost musical in itself. It was working. Evan could feel it, the connection forming, invisible but strong. The baby's tiny hands reached toward him, and he responded instinctively, lifting it gently from the cradle. Its body was light, almost weightless, and its wings fluttered against his chest in soft, shimmering waves. For the first time, the hall was quiet. The baby, usually so restless, stared at him with curiosity and trust. Evan smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with pride. It was pure connection. Queen Seraphina took a step closer, her eyes softening. "You have a gift, Evan Marlowe," she said quietly. "This is rare among humans. You see, my child is not easily calmed. Those who succeed are few." Evan felt a mixture of relief and amazement. He had not expected to succeed so quickly, yet here he was, holding the queen's child, bridging a gap that had never been crossed before. He realized that this was more than diplomacy. It was trust, understanding, and a quiet respect that transcended species. The baby cooed softly, wrapping its tiny crystalline hands around his finger. Evan laughed quietly, a sound of genuine joy. The queen's lips curved into a small, approving smile. "You have my gratitude, Evan," she said, "and perhaps in time something more. For now, you have shown the first step in understanding Lyranthia's heart." Evan blinked, still holding the baby. The enormity of the moment sank in. He was here as a human diplomat, yet he had just accomplished something far greater. He had connected with a being from an entirely different world in a way no one else could. As the palace staff resumed their duties, carefully arranging the hall and preparing for the formal introductions, Evan felt the baby settle in his arms. Its wings glimmered softly, pulsing in harmony with the faint hum of the palace. For the first time in his life, Evan realized that true diplomacy was not about words, contracts, or negotiations. It was about empathy, presence, and understanding. The queen stepped closer, placing her hands lightly on the cradle beside him. "Evan Marlowe," she said, her voice steady yet warm. "You may have calmed my child, but this is only the beginning. Lyranthia watches you now, and I hope you will continue to show the heart of humanity." Evan nodded, still holding the baby, and felt a quiet determination settle within him. He had arrived on Lyranthia as a diplomat, but he understood in that moment that his journey would be far more extraordinary than he had ever imagined. And so, in the shimmering light of the palace, with the glow of alien forests visible through towering windows, Evan Marlowe took his first real step into a world where connection, understanding, and compassion would define the future, not only for him, but for all of humanity. Palace Hall had returned to its quiet rhythm, but Evan Marlowe's mind was far from calm. The weight of Queen Seraphina's words lingered like a delicate thread woven into the air. "Perhaps you can calm my child." That small phrase, filled with trust and challenge, echoed repeatedly in his thoughts. He had never imagined that simply holding a baby could carry such importance. Yet here he was, the center of attention for a civilization far older and wiser than his own. The baby, named Lilian by the Queen, now rested lightly against Evan's chest. Its crystalline wings pulsed faintly, illuminating patterns in the soft glow of the palace hall. Each tiny movement seemed purposeful, almost deliberate, as if the infant was not only alive, but already aware of the presence of others. Evan could feel the soft rhythm of its heartbeat through the fragile weight of its body, and in a strange way, it connected him to the alien child more deeply than any words could. Queen Seraphina observed quietly, seated on her throne-like dais. Her golden eyes reflected both curiosity and expectation. "Evan Marlowe," she said softly, "humans have a certain resilience, but empathy is far more valuable than strength. Let us see if you truly understand the nature of my child." Evan swallowed. He understood the challenge, though he did not fully know its rules. Lilian was no ordinary baby. The Lyranthians had evolved with a sense of awareness far beyond human infants. The Queen's words hinted at more than calming cries. They were testing him, assessing whether a human could grasp the delicate balance of attention, patience, and trust necessary to interact with her species. He nodded carefully. "I will do my best," he replied. His voice carried calmness, a steady presence he hoped would reassure both the Queen and the baby. The palace staff quietly stepped back, giving Evan space. The Lyranthian servants had already witnessed many attempts to calm Lilian, and most had failed. The infant's cries had a tendency to escalate when approached by strangers, yet Evan held firm, focusing on the small, subtle signals the baby gave. Its glowing eyes tracked his every movement, and its wings twitched slightly when he shifted. Evan realized the first step was observation. He studied Lilian carefully, noticing the delicate movements of its limbs, the rhythm of its tiny breaths, and the subtle pulses of light across its skin. There was a pattern, small, almost imperceptible, that he could follow. This child responded not just to sound or touch, but to the energy, the calm, and the focus of those around it. He spoke softly, weaving his words with gentle intonation. "Lilian," he murmured, "you are safe. Nothing will hurt you. See, I am here." His words carried no commands or force, only reassurance. Slowly, the baby's coos became less frantic. Its wings fluttered gently, its cries softened, and a faint rhythm of trust began to emerge. Queen Seraphina tilted her head slightly, intrigued. Few outsiders had the patience to observe and respond to Lilian without resorting to alarm or distraction. Humans often tried to imitate what they thought worked on alien children, using mechanical devices or sudden movements, but Evan relied solely on presence and empathy. It was a subtle human quality she found rare and fascinating. Minutes passed, though to Evan it felt longer. Each small movement of the baby was a signal, a test of his awareness. Lilian twitched its tiny fingers and let out soft, melodic coos that sounded almost like music. Evan leaned slightly closer, humming a quiet tune from his childhood. He had never imagined that a lullaby from Earth could resonate with an alien being, yet the baby responded immediately. Its wings fluttered rhythmically, and it reached toward his face with curiosity. The palace staff whispered softly among themselves, astonished at the scene. The hall, once tense with anxiety, now seemed filled with an almost magical calm. Queen Seraphina's lips curved into a faint, approving smile, but her eyes remained sharp, always evaluating. Evan realized something important. This was more than just calming a baby. It was understanding the language of emotion and presence. Humans had always relied on words and logic, but here, silence, patience, and empathy mattered far more. He adjusted his posture, ensuring that his movements were slow and predictable, allowing Lilian to feel secure. The baby's eyes widened, and it cooed more softly, almost like it was singing back. Evan mirrored the tiny gestures of its hands and wings, a silent conversation that transcended words. Every subtle response built trust, forming a fragile but genuine connection between human and alien. Queen Seraphina spoke quietly, her voice carrying just above the ambient hum of the palace. Evan, you are demonstrating something rare among your kind. Do not underestimate the value of patience. Lilian responds not only to sound and touch, but to intention. Observe carefully. Your intention matters more than any action. Evan nodded, focusing even more deeply. He realized that intention meant more than avoiding harm. It meant being fully present, aware of the child's needs, and responding with understanding rather than instinct alone. He noticed Lilian's wings fluttered slightly faster when it felt uncertainty, and relaxed when it felt reassurance. He adjusted his tone, his breathing, and even his heartbeat in subtle ways, hoping the baby could sense the calmness he projected. After several minutes, something extraordinary happened. Lilian reached out with its tiny crystalline hands and gently touched Evan's cheek. Its glow shimmered softly in response to his own warmth, and the infant's coos turned into quiet laughter, a sound so pure and musical that it seemed to echo through the palace. Evan smiled, feeling a rush of triumph and relief. He had not only calmed the baby but had begun to communicate in a language beyond words. Queen Seraphina's golden eyes widened slightly, and she leaned forward, her expression softening. "Indeed," she said, almost to herself, "this human understands." The palace erupted in quiet applause. Servants and guards exchanged amazed glances, while other advisors began whispering about the unprecedented success. Lilian curled slightly into Evan's arms, clearly comfortable and engaged. It was a sight that would be remembered in Lyranthian history, a human achieving what most of their own kind could not. Evan's own heart was racing, but he kept his focus. This moment, while personal, was also diplomatic. He had to show the Queen and her people that humans could be trusted, that they could empathize and respect life beyond their own world. He spoke softly to the baby again. "See, Lilian, you are safe and everything is fine. You can trust me." The baby's coos and gentle laughter became rhythmic, almost melodic. Evan realized that the communication had shifted entirely from words to energy, movement, and understanding. He had tapped into something universal, the bridge between beings that transcended species, language, and culture. Queen Seraphina finally spoke louder, addressing the court. "Evan Marlowe," she said, her voice carrying authority yet warmth, "you have accomplished what few have even dared to attempt. My child Lilian has accepted you. This is no small achievement. Your patience, understanding, and calmness are worthy of trust." Evan felt a mixture of pride and humility. He bowed slightly, careful not to disturb Lilian. "Your Majesty, it is my honor," he said. "I am grateful for your trust." The Queen studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Trust is the foundation of Lyranthia," she said. "And you, human, have shown the first step. But trust is not simply earned in moments. It is built over time. You must continue to learn, observe, and respect the ways of my people. Only then will true understanding grow. Evan nodded, absorbing the weight of her words. This was more than a task, it was a journey. Lilian stirred slightly, reaching for his shoulder, and Evan held the child securely, marveling at the tiny, glowing patterns across its skin. In the quiet aftermath, Evan noticed something else. The palace itself seemed to react. The colors in the air shimmered more gently. The soft hum of energy through the walls became harmonious, and even the faint light of the floating gardens outside seemed to pulse in time with the calm energy in the hall. It was as if Lyranthia itself acknowledged the bridge being built between human and alien, between worlds. Queen Seraphina's voice broke through his thoughts again. "Evan," she said gently, "many humans rely on force, tools, and instruments, but you have relied on heart. That is rare. The challenge before you is not over, yet you have taken the first, most important step. My child has accepted your presence, and with it, you have begun a bond that may change the course of our peoples." Evan swallowed, feeling the enormity of the situation. He had arrived as a diplomat, tasked with negotiation and observation. Yet in just a short time, he had achieved something deeper. He had touched a being from another world in a way that built trust, connection, and mutual respect. The baby's wings fluttered softly, shimmering in response to his gentle humming. Evan smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and calm. He realized that this journey, beginning with a single step of empathy, would be more extraordinary than he had ever imagined. The palace staff quietly resumed their duties, while the queen remained seated, observing Evan and Lilian with a mixture of curiosity, approval, and cautious expectation. The weight of the challenge had shifted from fear to opportunity, and Evan felt ready to face whatever came next. As the hall settled into calm once more, Evan understood the truth of the queen's words. Trust and understanding were not given. They were built through presence, empathy, and patience. And in that moment, holding a tiny, crystalline-winged child from another world, Evan Marlowe realized that humanity's greatest strength was not in technology or power, but in the heart. Evan Marlowe had spent hours in the palace since calming Lilian, yet he felt as though no time had passed. Every moment with the alien child brought new surprises. Lilian's glowing eyes followed him as he moved about the palace, small wings fluttering with excitement or curiosity. It was clear that the baby had begun to trust him, but Evan knew that trust was fragile. It had to be nurtured carefully, with patience and gentle attention. Queen Seraphina observed silently, seated on her throne, as if measuring not only the child's comfort but Evan's ability to respond to subtle cues. She did not speak much, but her presence was commanding. Every move Evan made seemed to be quietly evaluated. Every soft coo or gentle hum he offered measured against Lyranthian standards of care. Evan realized that Lilian communicated without words. Each flicker of light across its skin, each tiny movement of its wings or hands, conveyed emotion. A flutter meant curiosity, a glow meant pleasure or contentment, and a slight trembling indicated uncertainty or discomfort. He had to respond not only to what he saw but to what he felt, an energy that seemed to pulse from the baby. He began experimenting gently. Sitting cross-legged on the soft floor of the palace, Evan held Lilian upright against his chest. He hummed softly, watching for reactions. When the baby's wings trembled slightly, he adjusted the angle, held the child more securely, and maintained a calm rhythm in his breathing. The infant's glow became steady, and its tiny fingers curled around his own hand. Queen Seraphina spoke, her voice calm but purposeful. "Evan, understand that this is not a test of mere skill. Lilian feels the intentions of those around it. Approach with awareness, not only with hands and voice. Your thoughts, your calm, and your attention matter." Evan nodded, understanding the depth of her words. Unlike human children, Lilian did not respond merely to external comfort. It responded to presence, to awareness, to the subtle resonance of emotions. He closed his eyes for a moment and focused on being fully present, on letting his heart convey calm and safety to the infant. When he opened his eyes again, Lillian's eyes brightened and it cooed softly. Evan smiled. The connection was no longer one-sided. It was a quiet dialogue. The infant's wings fluttered in response to his humming, as though playing along with the rhythm. Evan realized that Lillian's world was musical and visual, each glow and movement part of a larger language he was beginning to understand. The palace was quiet around them. Even the soft hum of Lyranthian technology seemed to pause, as if watching the growing bond between human and alien. Evan felt a gentle warmth spreading through him, a mixture of awe, joy, and responsibility. He had to be careful, patient, and attentive, yet the reward was extraordinary. Lillian had begun to accept him as a companion, perhaps even a friend. Over the next hour, Evan explored different ways to communicate with the infant. He learned that certain soft vibrations of his humming encouraged playful coos, while gentle rocking helped relax the baby when it became overstimulated. He tried small gestures, mirroring Lillian's hand movements, and was amazed when the baby responded by copying him. It was a tiny, perfect reflection of the connection he was building. Queen Seraphina finally spoke, her golden eyes reflecting a rare warmth. "You are learning quickly, Evan. Few humans could achieve such attunement with a Lyranthian child. This is not simply about calming Lillian. It is about understanding its mind, its feelings, and its perception. You are beginning to speak in the language of connection." Evan felt pride, though he kept his movements gentle. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I feel lucky to have this opportunity," he said softly. "I have never experienced anything like this before. Lillian is teaching me as much as I am teaching it." The queen inclined her head slightly. "Indeed, knowledge is not only in books or training. True understanding comes from experience, empathy, and the willingness to observe carefully. You are learning the heart of Lyranthia human." As the day progressed, Evan experimented with playful interaction. He made small, slow gestures, forming shapes in the air with his hands. Lillian watched, its wings fluttering in fascination, and then mimicked the movements with tiny hands of its own. The glow on the baby's skin intensified, forming patterns that matched Evan's gestures. It was a silent dance, a game of reflection and discovery. Evan laughed quietly, amazed. This was not merely calming a baby, it was discovering a mind unlike any he had ever encountered. Lillian's intelligence and perception were far beyond human infancy, yet it responded to simple, patient gestures. The bond they were forming was mutual. Lillian trusted him, and Evan trusted himself to respond with care and understanding. Queen Seraphina spoke again, her voice calm yet measured. "Evan, observe this carefully. Lillian's response is not instinct alone, it is choice. The child is deciding to engage with you, to trust you. Every moment you must honor that choice. Trust is not commanded, it is nurtured." Evan nodded, feeling the gravity of her words. This was a lesson not just for him, but for humanity as a whole. Here was a being from another world, capable of judgment, preference, and emotion, and he was part of that experience. He had to be mindful, respectful, and present at every instant. Hours passed, and the connection deepened. Evan noticed patterns emerging in Lillian's behavior. Certain movements indicated curiosity, others showed contentment, and subtle shifts in light signaled joy or excitement. He responded with gentle speech, rhythmic humming, and mirrored gestures. Slowly, Lillian began to anticipate his actions, cooing softly before he even moved. Queen Seraphina watched in quiet approval. She had seen many attempts to calm Lillian, but few had succeeded beyond the first few minutes. Evan's persistence, attention, and empathy were exceptional. She leaned forward slightly, allowing herself a rare expression of hope. Perhaps this human could do more than merely calm her child. Perhaps he could truly understand the heart of her people. Evan began to notice small signs of affection. Lilian's tiny hands rested against his cheek or chest, its wings brushing gently as if to communicate comfort. The infant responded to his humming with patterns of light that pulsed in harmony with his voice. It was a rhythm, a shared understanding, a silent conversation that transcended language. He realized something profound. This was more than interaction, it was connection. Humans had always sought to explore the galaxy with technology, diplomacy, and reason. Yet here, the greatest bridge was empathy, patience, and heart. In that moment, Evan felt the true meaning of humanity's strength. As evening fell, the palace began to glow with soft light. The floating gardens outside shimmered in the hues of sunset, reflecting off the crystalline surfaces within. Evan held Lilian securely, feeling the warmth of the infant's body and the gentle pulsing of light across its skin. Every small gesture, coo, and flutter reinforced a bond that seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment. Queen Seraphina finally spoke aloud, addressing both Evan and her advisors. This human has shown understanding, patience, and empathy beyond what I expected. Lilian's trust is earned, not given. The bond forming here is rare, a connection not merely of care but of respect and awareness. Evan felt a quiet pride, though he remained focused on Lilian. He understood the importance of the moment and the responsibility he bore. This was not simply about calming a baby. It was about bridging species, showing that humans could understand, respect, and connect across worlds. For the first time since his arrival, Evan felt truly at home in the palace. Though the culture was alien and the surroundings extraordinary, he felt that something universal was present here: trust, empathy, and the joy of connection. It was a reminder that humanity's greatest strengths were not in machines or weapons, but in heart, awareness, and kindness. As the night settled over the palace, Evan continued to interact gently with Lilian. The baby's wings fluttered softly, forming patterns of light that reflected happiness, curiosity, and calm. He hummed quietly, rocking the infant gently, marveling at the way such a small being could teach lessons so profound. Queen Seraphina remained nearby, her gaze thoughtful but approving. Evan knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests of understanding and trust. Yet tonight, he had achieved something remarkable. He had crossed a barrier that few humans could, forming a bond that was rare, fragile, and precious. And in that quiet palace, under the glow of alien gardens and the soft shimmer of crystalline walls, Evan Marlowe realized that he was part of something far larger than diplomacy. He was part of a connection that could shape the future of humanity's place among the stars, not through force, but through understanding, patience, and heart. The morning sun bathed the palace of Lyranthia in a soft, golden glow. Evan Marlowe woke early, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. The night before had been extraordinary. He had connected with Lilian in ways he never thought possible. Yet he knew that the Queen's words still carried weight. Trust, she had said, was earned over time. Today promised a new challenge, one he could not fully anticipate. As he entered the main hall, Lilian's crystalline wings shimmered in the early light. The baby cooed softly, recognizing him instantly. Evan smiled, feeling the gentle warmth of that trust. He knelt beside the infant, humming a quiet tune, mirroring the rhythms he had learned the day before. Lilian's tiny hands reached out, curling around his fingers. Queen Seraphina entered the hall with a grace that commanded attention, her golden eyes reflecting both curiosity and something deeper: hope. She approached the throne-like dais, her gaze briefly meeting Evan before turning to her child. "Evan Marlowe," she said, her voice calm yet firm, "you have proven your understanding and patience, but there is one more test, a challenge not of skill alone but of connection." Evan straightened, listening carefully. "I am ready, Your Majesty," he said softly, though his heart beat quickly. He had learned that every moment with Lilian carried significance, but the Queen's words hinted at something beyond even the infant's comfort. The Queen gestured to Lilian. "My child is more than an infant of Lyranthia. It is a being of awareness, choice, and energy. To calm it fully, to earn its trust entirely, you must not only respond to its actions but anticipate them. You must form a bond that goes beyond words, beyond gestures. Are you willing to accept this responsibility?" Evan nodded without hesitation. "Yes, Your Majesty, I will do my best." The palace staff moved aside, leaving Evan alone with Lilian and the Queen. The air seemed to hum with quiet anticipation. Evan held the baby carefully, observing its subtle movements. The wings fluttered gently, the glow pulsed in soft rhythms, and the tiny hands explored the air around him. It was clear that Lilian was ready for interaction, yet Evan knew he must act with care. He began speaking softly, using a combination of gentle words and humming melodies. The baby responded immediately, cooing and reaching toward his face. Evan mirrored its tiny gestures, forming a delicate dialogue of touch and sound. Lilian's glow pulsed in patterns that seemed almost musical, reflecting joy, curiosity, and recognition. Queen Seraphina watched quietly, her golden eyes focused on every subtle movement. "Observe closely, Evan," she said. "Lilian is testing you now. It is not enough to calm it. You must understand it, predict its feelings, and respond with care before it signals discomfort. Only then will the bond be complete." Evan concentrated fully. He adjusted his breathing to match the rhythm of the baby's wings, subtly shifting his posture to mirror the infant's small movements. He hummed a quiet, gentle melody, one that seemed to resonate with the baby's internal patterns. Lilian tilted its head, eyes bright, cooing in delight, and Evan smiled. He noticed something extraordinary. Lilian began to anticipate his gestures. The baby moved its hands in the same rhythm as his humming, matching patterns of light with increasing complexity. It was as if a silent game had begun, a game of mutual understanding, trust, and connection. Evan leaned closer, speaking softly. "Lilian, we understand each other," he whispered. "You can trust me and I will always be here." The baby cooed, wings fluttering faster, and a small laugh-like sound escaped. The glow across its skin pulsed in response to Evan's gentle words, forming patterns that mirrored his tone and gestures. The room seemed to hum with energy, a quiet, harmonious resonance that filled the palace. Queen Seraphina stepped closer, her gaze thoughtful. "Evan, you are not only observing, you are communicating. This is rare among humans. Many rely on tools, gestures, or instructions. You are relying on heart. That is what matters most to Lilian." Evan felt a deep sense of connection, realizing that this moment went far beyond calming a baby. He was building a bond, a trust that crossed species, culture, and worlds. Every small movement, every soft hum, every mirrored gesture deepened the connection. Lilian's tiny fingers wrapped gently around his, and its wings fluttered rhythmically. Finally, after what felt like both minutes and hours, Lilian rested quietly in Evan's arms. The baby's glow softened, a sign of contentment, and it cooed softly, eyes half closed in trust. Evan breathed a quiet sigh of relief. He had anticipated the infant's needs, responded to its subtle signals, and formed a bond of mutual understanding. Queen Seraphina approached, her expression softening. "Evan Marlowe," she said, her voice gentle but carrying weight, "you have done what few can achieve. Lilian trusts you completely, and trust in Lyranthia is the foundation of the highest bond." Evan blinked, unsure if he had understood her correctly. "The highest bond, Your Majesty?" he asked cautiously. The Queen nodded slowly. "Yes, in Lyranthian custom, trust earned in such a manner may lead to a bond beyond friendship or loyalty. It is the closest we have to what humans might call a life partnership. You have earned my child's trust, Evan." And with it, she paused, a small, rare smile crossing her face. I offer you a chance to form the highest connection in our tradition, to be recognized as a partner in bond if you accept." Evan was speechless. His mind raced, trying to process the enormity of her words. Marriage, a concept he had known on Earth, but in this context with an alien culture, it carried profound meaning. It was not simply a contract or ceremony. It was recognition of trust, empathy, and the ability to connect across worlds. He looked down at Lilian, the tiny being resting peacefully in his arms, wings shimmering softly. He realized that it was not just about him or the Queen. It was about humanity's ability to bridge gaps, to connect with other forms of life through understanding and heart. "Your Majesty," he finally said, his voice steady though full of awe, I am honored. I do not fully understand all the implications, but I accept the trust you have offered. I will do my best to honor it." Queen Seraphina's smile widened slightly, her golden eyes reflecting warmth. "Then so it shall be, Evan. But know this bond is not formed by words alone. You must continue to nurture it, to show patience, empathy, and understanding every day. Lilian and I will observe, learn, and grow alongside you. Only through ongoing connection will the bond remain strong." Evan nodded, feeling both the weight and the joy of the moment. He realized that this was no ordinary honor. It was a responsibility, a test of heart and empathy. Holding Lilian close, he whispered softly, "I will do my best, little one. We will learn together." The baby responded with a soft coo, wings fluttering in a gentle rhythm that seemed to echo his words. Evan smiled, feeling the warmth of trust and connection fill the space between them. The palace itself seemed to acknowledge the moment. The soft hum of energy in the walls and floors pulsed in harmony with the peaceful rhythm of the infant's wings. For the rest of the day, Evan remained with Lilian, learning more about the child's unique ways of communicating. He discovered that small gestures, changes in tone, and careful attention to patterns of movement could convey more meaning than words ever could. Lilian responded to every subtle signal, forming a dialogue of trust and understanding that transcended language. Queen Seraphina observed, occasionally offering guidance in her calm, measured tone. "Observe closely, Evan," she said at one point. "The child's responses are teaching you not only about Lyranthia, but about the power of presence and intention. Remember, empathy is more than understanding. It is action, reflection, and respect combined." Evan listened carefully, absorbing every word. He realized that this experience was teaching him lessons far beyond diplomacy. It was a demonstration of humanity's true strength, its ability to empathize, connect, and nurture across barriers of culture, species, and experience. By evening, the bond was unmistakable. Lilian relaxed completely in Evan's arms, wings fluttering softly, tiny hands curling gently around his fingers. The glow across its skin pulsed rhythmically, forming patterns of trust and recognition. Evan felt a profound sense of responsibility, realizing that this bond was fragile yet precious, a connection that symbolized hope for understanding between worlds. Queen Seraphina stepped forward once more, her expression calm but filled with meaning. "Evan Marlowe," she said, her voice steady and clear, "you have done more than calm my child. You have shown understanding, patience, and empathy beyond what we expected. Lilian trusts you. And through that trust, you have formed the foundation of a bond that may shape not only our family, but the relationship between our worlds." Evan nodded, his heart full. "Your Majesty, I am honored," he said softly. "I will continue to learn, to listen, and to care. I will honor the trust you and Lilian have shown me." The Queen's golden eyes softened, and she inclined her head in approval. "Then let our journey begin, Evan Marlowe. Together, we will explore the depths of understanding, trust, and connection. And through it, humanity will show its greatest strength, not in force, but in heart." As the palace settled into quiet evening light, Evan held Lilian close, feeling the soft glow and gentle rhythm of wings against his chest. He realized that the greatest challenges were not tests of strength or intellect, but of empathy, patience, and understanding. And in that quiet, shimmering palace, a new bond had formed, one that promised hope, friendship, and a bridge between worlds. The palace of Lyranthia glowed softly in the early morning light, reflecting the delicate colors of the floating gardens outside. Evan Marlowe awoke with a quiet sense of purpose. The past days had been extraordinary. He had calmed Lilian, earned the trust of Queen Seraphina, and discovered a connection with a civilization far beyond his own. Today marked the beginning of a new chapter, one that carried responsibility, hope, and promise. As he entered the main hall, he found Lilian waiting, wings fluttering gently in greeting. The baby's glow shimmered in patterns of recognition and joy. Evan knelt beside Lilian, humming softly, mirroring the tiny gestures the infant made with hands and wings. The rhythm between them had become almost seamless, a silent conversation that needed no words. Queen Seraphina approached with her usual grace. "Evan," she said, her golden eyes reflecting warmth, "your bond with Lilian has strengthened beyond my expectations. It is rare for a human to understand a Lyranthian child so deeply. You have demonstrated patience, empathy, and presence. Now, we must take the next step." Evan nodded carefully. He had anticipated this moment, though he was not fully certain what the next step would involve. His heart beat faster, not with fear, but with anticipation. He understood that trust was a living thing. It needed attention, nurturing, and commitment. And in this moment, he was ready to embrace it fully. Queen Seraphina gestured to Lilian, who cooed softly and reached out toward Evan. The baby's glow pulsed brighter, wings fluttering in gentle waves, as if urging him forward. Evan held the child carefully, feeling the warmth, light, and energy flowing between them. It was more than a bond. It was a connection that bridged species, culture, and worlds. The Queen's voice carried a quiet authority, yet there was a trace of softness. "Evan Marlowe, you have earned not only my trust but the trust of my child. In Lyranthian custom, such trust is the foundation of the highest bond, a bond of unity, understanding, and shared life. It is a bond that transcends simple companionship or duty. It is partnership in every sense." Evan swallowed, trying to process the depth of her words. He had understood the responsibility before, but hearing it articulated with such gravity made him realize the magnitude of what was being offered. This was not a ceremony or formality. It was recognition of his humanity, empathy, and ability to connect. It was a bridge between worlds, and he was standing at the center of it. I accept your majesty," he said finally, his voice steady. "I promise to honor the trust you and Lilian have placed in me. I will continue to learn, observe, and grow alongside both of you." Queen Seraphina's golden eyes softened, and she inclined her head in approval. "Then so it shall be, Evan. But know this, trust is nurtured every day. Your bond with Lilian and with me must be tended with care, patience, and understanding. Only then will it flourish." Evan nodded, holding Lilian close. The baby's tiny hands rested gently on his chest, wings fluttering softly, glowing in patterns of calm and contentment. It was a quiet affirmation, a gesture of trust that spoke louder than words. The rest of the palace staff watched silently, acknowledging the moment's significance. Among the Lyranthians, few had seen such a bond form between human and their kind so completely. Whispers of admiration filled the air, but the moment remained intimate, private, and profound. Evan spent the day learning more about Lilian's world. He discovered small ways to communicate, subtle signs of mood, curiosity, and comfort. Lilian responded with increasing playfulness, forming patterns of light that mirrored Evan's gestures and even anticipating his movements. It was a living, growing dialogue, a dance of empathy, awareness, and joy. Queen Seraphina guided him through rituals of care, small but meaningful gestures that demonstrated commitment. Every action, Evan, carries meaning, she explained. From a glance, a touch, a hum, to the attention you give to the smallest movement, these are all acts of trust. The child feels them, and through them the bond deepens. Evan absorbed every lesson, marveling at the subtlety and depth of the Lyranthian ways. He realized that human instincts, patience, observation, empathy, had carried him this far, yet he still had much to learn. And he welcomed the challenge with a quiet joy, understanding that this journey was about connection, not control. As evening approached, the palace shimmered in golden and violet hues. The floating gardens outside glowed softly, reflecting light through the crystal walls. Evan sat with Lilian in his lap, humming a melody that had become familiar to both of them. The baby's wings fluttered rhythmically, glowing patterns forming in perfect harmony with the tune. It was as though the palace itself was celebrating the bond that had been formed. Queen Seraphina approached and placed a hand gently on Evan's shoulder. "Evan, you have done more than earn trust. You have shown humanity's potential. Your empathy, patience, and heart have bridged the gap between our worlds. Lilian's acceptance of you is a reflection of that truth." Evan looked down at the baby, smiling softly. "Lilian has taught me just as much as I have taught it," he said. "This bond is a gift, and I will honor it every day." The Queen's expression softened further. "Then our journey begins. Humanity has shown that connection, understanding, and heart can transcend worlds. You are proof of what your species can achieve when guided by empathy rather than force." Evan felt a surge of pride, not in himself alone, but in the potential of humanity. Here, on a distant world, a human had formed a bridge of trust and understanding. And in that bridge lay hope, a promise that two civilizations could coexist, learn from each other, and grow together. Over the following days, Evan became a constant presence in the palace. He learned more about Lilian's preferences, moods, and ways of communication. The baby's tiny hands and wings became instruments of dialogue, forming a silent, living language that only the two of them fully understood. Each interaction strengthened the bond, and Evan felt the deep joy of connection that went beyond words. Queen Seraphina observed quietly, occasionally offering guidance, but mostly allowing Evan and Lilian to grow their relationship naturally. She understood that true bonds could not be forced. They had to emerge organically, nurtured by attention, care, and respect. And she was pleased to see that Evan's presence was more than competent. It was heartfelt. In private moments, the Queen spoke with Evan about the responsibilities of trust and partnership. "This bond you share with Lilian," she said, "is not only personal. It represents the possibility of understanding between worlds. Your example will be remembered, taught, and celebrated in Lyranthia." Evan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He understood that this was bigger than him, bigger than Lilian, and bigger than even the palace. Humanity had a chance to show its greatest qualities: empathy, understanding, and heart, and he was standing at the forefront of that opportunity. One evening, as the twin moons of Lyranthia rose over the palace gardens, Evan sat with Lilian on his lap, humming the soft melody that had become their shared language. The baby's wings fluttered gently, glowing in rhythmic patterns that matched the tune. Evan realized that in those simple interactions, in those quiet, shared moments, a bridge had formed, a bridge that symbolized the best of humanity. Queen Seraphina approached silently, observing the scene. She smiled, a rare and warm expression. "Evan Marlowe," she said softly, "you have honored the trust placed in you. You have demonstrated that humans can connect, understand, and care beyond what is expected. Lilian's bond with you is a reflection of your heart and of humanity's potential." Evan looked up, meeting her gaze. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he said. "I feel honored to be part of this, and I promise to continue learning, observing, and caring. This bond, it is a gift I will cherish every day." The queen inclined her head, satisfaction evident in her eyes. Then let the story of this bond begin. Let it be a symbol of understanding, connection, and hope for our people and for the stars beyond. And so, in the quiet glow of the palace, surrounded by shimmering gardens, crystalline walls, and the gentle hum of energy, Evan Marlowe held Lilian close. Wings fluttered softly, tiny hands curled around his fingers, and the glow of trust and connection filled the space. It was a bond that transcended worlds, a testament to patience, empathy, and the quiet power of humanity's heart. In the days that followed, the palace celebrated quietly, and word spread throughout Lyranthia of the human who had bridged worlds not through power, but through understanding. Evan's presence became a symbol of hope, a reminder that connection and empathy could create unity where difference had once seemed insurmountable. Evan Marlowe had arrived as a diplomat, tasked with negotiation and observation. Yet he had achieved something far greater. He had shown humanity at its best, not through dominance or technology, but through presence, heart, and the courage to trust and be trusted. And in that soft, glowing palace of Lyranthia, under the twin moons and among the floating gardens, a new chapter began for Evan, for Lilian, for Queen Seraphina, and for humanity's place among the stars. A bond forged in patience, trust, and understanding had blossomed, proving that empathy could bridge even the widest of worlds.